Good morning and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. We're broadcasting live this morning from Cape May County, New Jersey, and it's kind of dreary out. It kind of stinks, but it's supposed to be pretty. I'm at the beach. It's supposed to be pretty all the time. We are coming to you via SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio and TV. I am your host, the business diva, Melanie Collette. I am pleased that we have with us this morning author, speaker, radio personality extraordinaire, and also professor. I left that out. Mr. Todd Allyn, and he's going to talk to us. First thing he's going to talk to us about is wealth accumulation, but he's going to talk to us about his book and The Cattle Upon a Thousand Hills: The True Nature of Wealth Accumulation, what your hands and feet can do between Sundays. And the fact that he says what your hands and feet can do between Sundays is relevant because it really is directed at God's people, so to speak. So if you are a worshiper, you believe in the Lord, you believe in God, that's kind of the direction and theme of the book. And I always, I find, and you can't really expect this from public schools, I suppose, but even in college, they could very well at least mention a higher power as part of, how people are successful. Because if you talk to many successful people, many of them have a belief in a higher power. And I find that that's something that's missing. So as often as possible, I try to talk about the role that a higher power plays in people's lives and people's success in dealing with their money. In addition to Mr. Todd Allyn, we're also going to, of course, have the 5 minutes of personal finance. And today's is passive income, 5 ways to make money while you sleep. So we'll talk about what passive income is and just some out of the box ideas to earn passive income. But before we get to that, a bit of housekeeping. I want to thank my sponsor, the Tax Mama, aka Eva Rosenberg, who is the guru, goddess, expert extraordinaire on all things taxes. She has 2 books, Small Business Taxes Made Easy and How to Deduct Everything. They are both award-winning books. So if you go to her website, taxmama.com, and that's with one M, M-A-M-A, she will answer your tax questions for free. That's the other thing. She's been on the show a couple of times. It's probably about time to have her back, since it looks like the healthcare bill is dead in the water and we might be going to tax reform. Don't get me started. Really irritated about that. Also, if you missed, I wanted to bring to your attention that I had the opportunity to host Patriot 125, or Patriots Tonight is the name of the show, on Patriots Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125. So if you have Sirius XM, you can listen. On demand. You can do that by going to the website and checking that out if you like. It was a 3-hour show, 3 interviews, call-ins. I had a complete and total blast. So if you'd like to check that out, go ahead to Sirius XM. If you don't have a membership, they do offer a free trial. So if you really are clamoring to listen to the show, you can just set up a free trial pretty quickly. And that's on Patriot 125 Sirius XM. If you want to know ahead of time who's going to be on my show, the best way to do that is to follow me on any of my social media, which would be on Twitter at Money Talk Mel, or on Facebook. You can like my Facebook page, Money Talk with Melanie. Or if you have a question, you want to tell me that my blouse is ugly, you want to suggest a topic for 5 minutes of personal finance, you can email me at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com. Also, if you are only listening on Spreaker and not availing yourself of the opportunity to go into the chat room, the show does have a chat component. And if you have any questions for my guests, you can certainly place them there. And I will make sure that I ask my guests whatever questions that you have. And also, I will share with my guests whatever comments that you have about the show or about what the guest is saying. There's usually quite a few listeners in the chat room, so that's always fun. So you can always do that by going to shrmedia.com. I'm usually streaming live on YouTube or on shrmedia.com as well. So that's something else that you can absolutely check out. Finally, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you would like to join my list of esteemed guests such as Mr. Todd Allyn or former Senator of Colorado Ted Harvey or Dr. Brooks Robinson from blackeconomics.org or even Ebony K. Williams, one of the Fox News specialists who's been on the show a couple of times, give me a call. Let me know what you're about. Let me know about your book, your product, entrepreneurship, what you're an expert in, all things money at 973-756-6639. Now for the today's Money Talk news report. Well. You know, I went to bed kind of early last night, thinking that when I woke up this morning, we were going to have passed. And when I say we, I mean the party that I so adore, the Republican Party, would have passed some type of healthcare bill. And so when I woke up at about 2:30 a.m., something just shook me. It said, wake up. And I think that's when the news announced that the bill had indeed not passed. Just infuriating that this is happening. It just makes absolutely no sense. I don't know why. I don't know why we can't get our collective act together. But as I heard Kellyanne Connolly say earlier today in an interview, I think this is why Congress has such a low approval rating. How can you approve of something that you can't get this done? Like it just, I just can't. I don't want to dwell on it because I feel like I talk about the doggone healthcare bill every single Money Talk news report, and it's never good news. One of these days, I'm going to report on that, and it's going to be fabulous news. Just one day. I'm praying. But in other news, according to LinkedIn, Hewlett-Packard CEO Meg Whitman says there's no way on this God's green earth she's going to be Uber's new CEO. Okay, that's not exactly what she said, but that's pretty much what she said. She's not doing it, according to LinkedIn. Apparently, she was on their short list. If you recall, Uber is in need of a CEO because of their bad acting previous CEO who just did not know how to behave himself, which is unfortunate because he was a founder. But yes, even you can go can get fired from your own company. Same thing happened to Steve Jobs, if I'm not mistaken. Early on with Apple, he was fired from his own company that he founded, but they let him back in, and to the joy of many of us Apple devotees. Rest in peace, Steve Jobs. All of you, another news item, all of you environmentalists out there will be happy to learn that Tesla's Model 3 is arriving today, and they're having quite the special event to give their first 30 customers their keys. So all you wealthy tree huggers should be very happy about that. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make fun of you, but the whole thing about electric vehicles and saving the planet is just such, like, you know where electricity comes from, right? Like, do you know? I'm not gonna go into it. Just Google it. Just, you know, because like you're trying to save the planet with no coal and no oil and stuff. But you may want to look into how electricity is made. I'm just saying. Now, coffee, and actually I should say tea aficionados, it's a very sad day. Starbucks is shutting down 379 Teavana stores. Apparently they just couldn't make the grade. It's very sad. Because, and the saddest part is that 3,000 jobs are going to be lost. So that's a problem. And apparently Teavana stores are mostly located in malls. Malls are generally struggling as it is. I mean, listen, I used to be like the mall queen. I haven't been to a mall in ages. And in fact, I avoid them. So I can totally relate to that situation. It's really kind of sad. And plus I'm a tea drinker. People should drink more tea. Tea's awesome, especially the loose teas. Like if you really want to be bourgeois, go with the loose tea. and the oh gosh, what do they call the thing that you put the I can't call the name of the thing that you put the loose tea in now, but they have a bunch of those and they're really cute. It'll come to me. It'll come to me during the break. But seriously, get into the loose tea. I feel bad for you tea drinkers out there that are into your fancy schmancy tea. I will admit that I'm one of them. Anyhow, you are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we will be back on the other side of the break with the one and only Todd Allyn.
The Bible says to train up a child in the way that he should go, and he shall not depart. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, when I was just a little boy, my dad would tell me, what is taught to one generation dictates the direction society takes in the next. For example, the Saul Alinsky communist teachings drilled into the mind of young Hillary Rodham produced perhaps one of the most morally corrupt candidates for public office ever. That description applies to many of our hippy-dippy generation that plotted the long-term whittling away of the good values that contributed to making the United States the envy of the world. If you, dear listener, ever wondered what in the world happened and how our Congress became populated with over 100 communists and many other compromisers who refused to uphold their most important physical duty, which is to work with the president to protect our republic from enemies both foreign and domestic, the problem is simple. In most cases, they were not taught enough about the importance of adhering to the principles that are blessings when upheld. My fellow Americans, bless our republic by training up your children in the way that they should go. Then perhaps America will again be the envy of the world. I'm Ron Edwards.
Blowing away the myths and revealing the truth. You can continue to blow away the myths with Ron Edwards on Facebook, Twitter, and theronedwards.com. Sponsored by Ron Edwards.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the tax benefits of different forms of financing, spot and fix errors in the 1099s, legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Start deducting today. Visit TaxMama.com. TaxMama.com. That's TaxMama with one M.com.
We love Ron Edwards. He's just fantastic. If you listened during the break, you heard Ron Edwards' notebook, and you definitely don't want to miss Ron Edwards' show, which is on SHR Media on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you like his notebooks, you're going to love the Ron Edwards experience. Love that guy. He's just, although he and I have fundamental disagreements about President Trump. We just have that thing. We just are on a little battle on a regular basis about President Trump. He's an always Trumper. I'm going to coin that new phrase, an always Trumper. And I'm certainly no never Trumper, but I'm all about calling people out on their behavior. I have a problem. I'm that girl. Listen, you don't get the moniker the business diva and not like things done properly. I'm just saying. And of course, President Trump does his own thing, and oftentimes not properly, not with the proper etiquette, not the way Miss Manners would do things. And so on occasion, I have fundamental issues with President Trump, and Ron Edwards will call me out every single time on, which I appreciate because I absolutely adore him. He's just the best, and his commentary is fantastic. Make sure you check out his show. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, who is the one and only Mr. Todd Allyn. I'll tell you a little bit about Mr. Allyn. He is a professor of business and economics. He has a vast experience as a consultant and a manager of of companies, of corporations, and actually several companies in the financial services industry. He also hosts a radio show in his own right, the Todd Allyn Show, which I was privileged to be a guest on last week. And now he is returning the favor as a guest on my show. He is also the author of the book, and I think he's got another one coming out in addition to this one. I'm going to have him talk to us about that. But he's also author of the book, And the Cattle Upon 1,000 Hills, The True Nature of Wealth Accumulation, What Your Hands and Feet Can Do Between Sundays. So without further ado, Mr. Todd Allyn, how are you this morning?
I'm outstanding. How are you?
I am fantastic. Now that I got a few sips of coffee going, I'm starting to wake up a little bit. Yeah, I am a little Miss Cranky Pants boy until I get my coffee. It's not a good thing. Is there anything else? I'm sure there's things that I missed in your bio. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself? Something that I missed in the bio?
Well, no, that's pretty much it. I'm a tenured professor of business and economics, and I speak extensively about how to read behind the financial headlines, understanding the Wizard of Oz, and also I'm in the process of writing another book called Money Boot Camp: Basic Training for Mastering the Art of Financial War. And so, finance and economics is what I really enjoy. I believe that's my calling to teach regarding those things. And it all pretty much started for me because I saw what lack of finance did for my grandparents. I always say that if God was in a foot race with my grandfather, if God had not leaned at the tape, my grandfather would have won. So he was my grandfather was very, very important to me. And growing up, he was really the major father figure that I saw and experienced and had time with. But then as he got older, his life kind of diminished because of the financial worries that he had. My grandmother had gotten sick. My grandfather, they were retired. And so as they got older, their expenses basically increased, which is something that we had never been taught in school. We were always taught that as you get older, your expenses should diminish. So when you retire, you should be okay. But that's not the reality for many people here in America. And so at that particular point in time, I decided that I wanted to be a financial advocate for people and kind of give them the red pill as to how this system really operates and works relative to money and finances. So
that's excellent. And many times that is what leads us to our calling, isn't it? Our
yes,
background and our experiences, and makes us say, we're not going to let this happen to anyone
mm-hmm.
in the future. And quite honestly, Todd, this is what needs to happen more in our community. I'm going to use one of the phrases that I hate, in our community. And actually, you know what? I'm going to back that up. Dr. Brooks Robinson says that instead of saying the Black community, we should be saying in our sphere of influence. And I'm trying to correct that because I completely agree.
I agree with that. And in particular, in our churches, in our Christian churches, I mean, the focus many times is on tithes, and you hear all the time, will a man rob God? Well, let's understand what the tithe was really all about. The tithe was to support the fatherless, the widows, and those who could not be an advocate for themselves. And so there are many money principles that's in the Bible that is kind of overlooked, or dare I say, mistaught, in order to further individual causes within the churches. And so the book On the Cattle of 1,000 Hills, Money Management for God's People, was an attempt to, one, plagiarize the Bible, because again, I didn't have an original thought in my head when it came to that. But to kind of give biblical principles as to how we really should operate in between the Sundays. Giving a tithe on Sunday, it goes beyond that in terms of managing our resources. And we know that from the Torah and the book of Deuteronomy, it says that it's God that gives us the power to gain wealth. So what does that mean? The power to gain wealth. We also know that from the New Testament, faith without works is dead, being alone, so we should have the faith and the works also. Meaning that we've got to put our hands and feet to work. Simply praying and asking God to have a check delivered in our mailbox without having put some work behind it is not what God's word says.
Preach on that. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Because one of the first things that God did when He placed man in the Garden of Eden is that He had him tend the garden, which meant that man worked. He had a job to do.
Yeah.
And so that if we expect abundance from doing nothing but sitting on our tuchus, that ain't biblical.
Yes, indeed. You're right about that. I love all of that, and I'm absorbing all of what you just said, and I hope that my audience is absorbing that too, because it is so very true. And I love the fact that you pointed out what the purpose of tithing was. It was not so that the pastor could have a new Mercedes. That was not what that was about. So
well, the priests were full-time priests, and the priests were the ones who actually did the sacrifices for the nation itself. And so it was a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job for the priest. And so they could not go out and work. So the tithe was a way in which the community basically supported the priest, whose job was it to see to the spiritual welfare or the spiritual well-being of the nation. That was the tithe. That was the bringing the tithe into the storehouse so that there be meat in my house. And so those priests were full-time. Now, if you have a church where your pastor is a full-time pastor, that's something different. But in many instances, in many cases, that's not the case. So I would just, encourage people to kind of really to be prayerful into really understanding what the purpose of the tithe was for. Now, I know that's not going to be popular amongst a lot of people in the clergy because. And this is just me. This is just a Toddism. If the pastor is living a particular lifestyle, but yet you have members in your church who are struggling, I'm questioning the leadership.
Amen. Because the principal responsibility was the care for the flock, and that just does not only mean spiritually. Of course, it principally means spiritually, but it also means materially. The widows and the children.
Yes.
So, if the pastor is driving around, is wearing the finest of fineries and driving around in the finest of cars and has the biggest house, but there's members of his church that that are homeless, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's sort of like, what are they doing? I mean, the gold rush in 1949, you had people who actually dug for gold, but then the people who really made the money were the ones who sold the picks and shovels. So let me bring that back to the church. The ones that are they selling the religion in order to gain a profit? Are they selling the picks and shovels of religion? Because people are looking for gold, people are looking for a way in which they can better their lives. Well, again, if the pastor is doing extremely well and you have individuals who are in the flock who aren't and who've been there for years, there's a problem with leadership.
Absolutely. It's a frightening thought in that when you think about what the scriptures say about the responsibility of those who are caring for the flock and about how they'll be judged for not doing right by the flock, I suspect that there are quite a few leaders who are going to have some accounting to do. I'm just saying. It says they will be judged double for misleading and not caring for the flock properly. So But
I want to. Here's my disclaimer, because again, there are some churches who are doing whose pastors are living quite well, but they are providing for the flock, and then sometimes people just don't listen.
Amen. Well. Anybody who's in the teaching biz, like you and myself, knows that a lot of times people don't listen. It's like there's a meme that says, "Next time, do it the way your teacher said to do it."
That's right.
If you're continuing to make mistakes, so that's absolutely true. I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you certainly can't make them drink. So let's talk about wealth accumulation and the instructions. You have a combination of biblical knowledge along with your fundamental knowledge of economics. I had to talk to you about how in the world you get an economics job as a professor, seriously, because well, here's the thing. My background is in economics, but I always get these technology gigs. Like I'm an adjunct professor, but it's in the computer science department. which is
Right.
not my bad.
Right.
But I'm really techie. It's just like kind of a thing. But we have to have a conversation about that.
That's very much needed. Yeah.
That might be what it is.
I'm more of what they call an Austrian economist, which means I'm more of a behaviorist as opposed to a classical economist or neoclassical economist. So I look at the behaviors that people do and understanding that economics is the study of choices, and how we make choices will determine, even as simple as how long we live. If we make wrong choices, if young Todd makes wrong choices, old Todd suffers.
Yes.
And so it goes to, we have to do how we make choices. And so when we talk about wealth accumulation, the very simple way to accumulate wealth is to spend less than you earn.
Well, that's no fun.
yeah, that's no fun. But then how do you earn more? Well, you earn more by giving more to society. I mean, let's face it, Bill Gates is the wealthiest man in the world and as a techie that when you turn on your computer, a cash register goes off in Bill Gates' house. Because he's been able to provide a good service to more people to help them satisfy their needs and wants. He's created a service that's put more people in college, that's put more food on more people's tables, that have helped people get more jobs than any other person on the planet. That's why he's the wealthiest man on the planet right now. And so how do we as individuals, how do we get more income? Well, we provide more service. In the Bible, we see that Abraham became wealthy because not only did he provide a service to be able to acquire the resources, but then he had those resources work for him, and it benefited people other than himself.
Yes.
And so that becomes the key. And I'm not saying that we have to be altruistic, super altruistic in our minds or our thought process. But what we have to do is that we have to first look to satisfy the needs of others before we can satisfy the needs of ourselves.
Excellent. And I will tell you, and something that you already know, but for the benefit of my audience, I've interviewed many entrepreneurs at this point, and I always ask them what is their key to success. And I will tell you that quite a few of them, I would say maybe if I were just to guesstimate, and I know as a professor it's a bad look as an educator, but I would estimate that about 75% always say that giving is a key to their success. And here's the thing. Here's the awesome thing about God and about how God has set up this universe to work. You don't have to be a godly person for godly principles to work.
Exactly.
That's the thing. So if you're doing the principle, it's still going to work.
Absolutely. The Bible says that the rain falls on the just and the unjust.
And there you go.
And so that principle is prevalent, just like you said. And let me just take one step further. It's not when we talk about giving. I don't simply mean that you have money and so you give to a cause. What I simply mean is this: that you find out what the needs of a person are. If they need to have food, or if they need to have education, or if they need transportation, which are some of the major industries that we have, you provide those goods and services. Now, how you price them in the marketplace is something totally different. But if you provide the need for the people and you make it such that they can afford it and they want it, you'll never go hungry. You'll never go hungry.
Absolutely. That is very true. That is and that's an excellent point. And I had I want to say it was Mitch Russo, who used to work for Tony Robbins, who said that, there are ways you may be thinking, well, how in the world do I do that? How in the world do I figure out what the need is? And Mitch Russo pointed out that there are many ways to do that without costing you any money, particularly with technology. And here is the thing, and the thing that just bothers me the most about people complaining about lack of information. We now have the internet. Even if you don't have it at home, go to your local library. It's usually free. So there's no excuse to not have information.
Yeah, well, no, it's not free. We paid for it, so they have use for it.
Well,
so,
yeah. True. Correction.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just tell them you're welcome.
Exactly. It's so true. But I just don't want to hear I can't stand to hear, oh, well, I didn't know. Well, why didn't you know? Because you were looking up, what the latest thing Atlanta Housewives were doing instead of looking up something that's actually going to help you?
Yeah. Well, going back to my book, when we talk about when people say, well, they're making an excuse. When God told Moses, look, I want you to go and talk to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. He made an excuse. He says, well, I can't do it because I don't speak well.
Yes.
Right? So God said, well, you don't worry about that. You just do what I told you to do. I will provide you with the tools necessary to get the job done. And so when especially people that believe in our Almighty, there's no excuses. Because we can't go before God Judgment Day and say, well, Lord, you see what had happened was.
Right. And that's the thing.
It's not going to work.
And I would tell I have a good friend who reminds me pretty regularly when I get to that place, when I start thinking that way, God's got you. He says it to me all the time. He's like, Melanie, God's got you. It's going to be okay.
Right.
And I'm not unique to that situation because we're all God's children.
Yep.
So God's got you if you want him to get you. That's the thing. Right. You can't just sit around. But if you want God to have you, he's got you.
Sometimes people believe that they're more popular by having the victim mentality. And those people who left, because it was a mixed multitude that came out of Egypt, the people that left and had the victim mentality is like, Moses, you brought us out here to die. At least when we was back in bondage, we had 3 hots in a cot.
Right.
Right. True. And so you'll have those who have the victim mentality, but they become the hangers on, because then when you're successful, those will be the very people to say we did it.
Indeed, there's something there's a segment of Christians out there, at least I don't know if you find this to be true as well, that seem to think that you are a bit more pious in suffering. Like if you're suffering, that makes you more godly. I don't buy into that because, and I talk to people all the time that are like that. And I'm like, well, why are you allowing yourself to suffer? Like you have this, that, all of these things. And I'll start pointing out to the things that they could avail themselves of to alleviate the suffering that I believe God puts there for us, that you just choose not, for some reason, you choose not to reach out and do. That requires some work, but you will just sit there and suffer.
Well, suffering then becomes a choice, doesn't it?
It does.
Because the example is, Christ suffered, but that was his choice because he's God. Indeed. He didn't have to, right? He didn't have to go through those things, but he chose to do those things because he had a higher purpose. And we know that he was perfect, and they still killed him.
Yes.
So that's suffering. That's suffering.
Yes.
When you're perfect and you don't have to suffer, you can walk away from it at any time because you're God, right? But then let's say, we choose to suffer because God told us, he says, I am with you always. And so even though we suffer for a time period, or we call it suffering, this is just a temporary status. It's just a temporary time.
Absolutely.
So we can make that choice because we're more than conquerors. But being a conqueror means that our hands and feet should be at work, right? Doesn't mean that we just sit down and wait. Our hands and feet, we occupy until it comes.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what our hands and feet could be doing to accumulate wealth. What would you say is the first step? And in under a minute, because I have a break at 10:40. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing I always encourage people to do is actually create a vision board. And what I mean by that is this: many times when you talk to people, you ask people, "What do you want?" They don't know what they want, but they can always tell you what they don't want. So I would say that the first thing to do in order to accumulate wealth is to figure out what it is that you want. That's the first step, because the mind then starts to actually to think about things that you can do in order to get those things. If you say that, hey, I want to take a trip to Florida, you have to first say, well, I don't want to go to Minnesota. I don't want to go to Michigan, right? And you end up in Florida. You decide cognitively, I want to go to Florida, and then you get the map to get there. that's the first step.
Excellent. I like that. Now, would you say 1040? It just turned 1040. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna stop myself. I'm gonna show some host discipline and go to a break like I'm supposed to, and then we're gonna talk about the next few steps. And I want to talk about the vision board in Christianity, because I think there are some people who believe that there's something unchristian about the vision boards. So I want to talk to you about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe from the Reaver, Common Sense. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com. That's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
The best late night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late night conservative talk show in America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we are talking to the one and only Mr. Todd Allyn about wealth accumulation, and really from a scriptural perspective, which I absolutely love. One of the things I love about the opportunity that I was given to do this show and being on a conservative network is that I can say God and Bible without somebody rushing in to throw duct tape over my mouth. So and my guests are free to do so as well. So Todd, you said before the break that one of the first steps in wealth accumulation is to figure out where you want to go and to create a vision board. And I'd said to you that, you know, there are some Christians who think that the vision board thing is kind of like a woo-woo kind of thing, and I was hoping that you could comport, you know, the context of spirituality and Christianity, and it being okay to have a vision board.
Okay, well, you can't create anything unless you have it in your mind's eye first. I mean, when God created the heaven and the earth, and He walked upon the waters of the deep, He said, "Let there be light." Do you think that He knew what light was? Because then it was created, and He said it was good. How can He, from a subjective perspective, whether or not something is good or not, if He first hadn't planned to know what it was?
Excellent.
So when people walk through this life, this thing called life, and they want to know how and why they ended up where they are, it's because they didn't plan to be where you are. You just went through life happenstance. Know that one of the first things that people ask someone to do when they say they want to create a business is they say, "What's your business plan? What does this look like? What does that look like?" And when a person formulates those things, then they can put the brick and mortar together and have a successful business and know whether or not it's good based upon what they see in their mind's eye. Back, if we see that we says, write the revelation down, make it plain so that a herald can run with it and proclaim it. So there's the vision. You can call it whatever you want. Some people call it a vision board. I call it a vision board because it creates pictures and you put it in your mind and so people can see it. So it's not this esoteric voodoo type thing. That's not. This is a basic principle that in order to define what a tree is, you first have to know what it looks like.
Indeed, and I'm so thank you so much for clarifying that, because like I said, I the impression that I get from some Christians is that they think there's some kind of, you know, magic, mystical, unchristian thing about a vision board, and that's simply not the case.
Yeah, I mean, what has happened in many instances is that the world knows certain principles, and they may call it by a different name.
Yes.
Okay, and because they call it by a different name, then those who are part of the body all of a sudden want to shun it and don't really want to take a look at it and see what it really is. So, I mean, it becomes the only way that you know how to get from point A to point B is that you have to, first, if you don't know the way, you have to get a map. Once you go that way on a regular basis, the way you know you go from point A to point B is because you see visual clues. Visual cues let you know that you've arrived, because the place looks familiar. So when you don't have a vision, how do you know that you've reached a level of success when it looks unfamiliar to you?
Amen. Amen. Preach. Okay, look, I'm running out of time. Okay, get to the what do you think the next steps are to wealth accumulation? I love that vision board. Love what you just said about that. What are the next steps?
Once you create the vision board and you create what it is that you want, you then have to decide what your particular talents are that you can give to the marketplace. And an example of that is this. You have to give to the marketplace whatever your talent is. When we see in the story of the talents, one had 5, one had 3, one had 1. The one had 5 made it to 10. The one had 3 made it, increased that. The one that had 1 talent, and said that they buried it, what did the man say?
Yes.
Thou unfaithful servant. He took it from him and gave it to the person that was actually doing what? Being productive in the marketplace.
Yes.
So when you're not productive in the marketplace, you are going to have your resources and your talents taken from you.
Yes.
So the next step is you have to understand what your talents are and how you can give your talents to the marketplace.
I love it. I love it. I'm actually taking notes because what kind of educator would I be if I didn't? So and student, most educators are constant students. At least I find that to be the case.
Yes.
Okay. What's another step?
Okay, so once you've figured out what it is that you can give to the marketplace, and for some people it may simply be to work in a business and to trade hours for dollars, and if that's the choice that they make, there's nothing wrong with that. For other people, they want to be more entrepreneurs and they want to have their own business and they want to give to the marketplace in that way. That's fine. Then what you have to do is that any resources that you get from giving to the marketplace, i.e. income, you have to protect that as if they're your children. You don't lose money. Your children, you know exactly where they are, you know exactly what they're doing, and at any point in time, you can call them and you can put your hands on them and you can see them. In many instances, people say, oh, I lost money. No, you didn't lose money. You gave it to this person over here. Or you had an investment and it went down. You didn't lose money. Someone on the other side of that investment gained money. So money is not lost. The only way that you lose money is if you are not paying attention. And you don't know where it is, but somebody does know where your money is at all times.
The person who got it next.
the person who got it. I mean, when we had the economic turndown in 2008, 2009, it says $7 trillion was lost in the market. No, $7 trillion was not lost in the market. Someone else was on the other side of that transaction, and those people ingratiated themselves to the economic downturn. So here's another thing that we have to get to understand. In an up market or a down market, you can make money.
That is very true. It depends on what you do in that up or down market.
Exactly. So you can short the market or you can go long the market. So when the economic downturn was taking place, and the prices were dropping, there were other people who were selling at the time because they knew it was dropping. So they were selling high and they were going to rebuy it low. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Many times our emotions, particularly when it comes to investing, as individual investors, our emotions will get to us and we'll react instead of being proactive. Professional investors don't do that. They tend not to do that. Professional investors tend to look at the numbers and look at the facts. They don't, and they use basic economic principles in their investing. They tend not to be emotional about their actions, but you can make money during any type of economic situation if you're savvy enough.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. Now, what about the principle of, and this is it's a four-letter word for me as well. What about the principle of being frugal? Does that take a role in wealth accumulation?
Of being frugal?
Yes.
Let's call it being wise. You know, one of the things that you want to do, your value is subjective. What's the value of this versus the value of that? For some people, they want to have a fancy car. Well, they have to pay a price for that. For others, they may want a less fancy car. But again, even with that, they have to pay a price. So the term being frugal simply means deciding what the value of a good or service is to you. We know that, a car goes from point A to point B. It could be a Yugo or it could be a Maybach. The car does the same thing.
True.
But the difference in price is significant. So it really depends upon the individual. If you have Coca-Cola income, but you want Maybach taste, may not work. And
that would be unwise to operate that way.
That would be unwise. Absolutely. And so then, that from that perspective, you want to, we could use the term frugal from that perspective. But being frugal simply means that you manage your resources in such a way that value is very subjective to you, and you may value a savings account more than you value paying for that fancy car. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, over the long term if other things come up, such as college education, such as needing braces, such as your car breaks down or something like that. By having that money in that savings account, by valuing that over others, it may turn out to be more beneficial for you in the long run.
Absolutely. Okay, I can't believe it's 10:55 already. Where can people listen to your show, contact you if they like you to speak, et cetera, et cetera?
They can follow me on Facebook at Todd Allyn Show on Facebook, or Todd Allyn on Facebook. They can also follow me on Twitter, the Todd Allyn Radio on Twitter, and follow me there and message me. And if they want me to come speak, just send me a hot message, and we'll follow up.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Just fantastic job.
Thank you, Melanie. Keep up the good work. I appreciate your show.
Thanks. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Made Easy and learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes. The tax benefits of different forms of financing, spot and fix errors in the 1099s, legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Start deducting today. Visit TaxMama.com. TaxMama.com. That's TaxMama with one M.com.
Hey, we are back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I want to thank the one and only Todd Allyn for being a guest on my show today. Just a really great job. Fantastic information. And I hope this show, I think, because of the information that Mr. Allyn gave us, can be played over and over again, especially if you are a believer. He uses many scriptures in the show to highlight how we can protect our finances and how we can accumulate wealth. So I hope that you all benefited from that. Also, the 5 minutes of personal finance I did not get to, but what I'm going to do, I think, is do a Facebook Live right after the show with the 5 minutes of personal finance. That way we don't miss out on that. I hate when that happens, but I can't help myself. If I have a really good guest that's giving us great information, I just can't stop myself from letting him continue to talk, he or she continue to talk. So I appreciate everyone that listened to the show today, and remember that all of this is very important because it's your money.